When I tell people I'm from Nimbin, they mostly will associate that with weed.
The Nimbin label.
Drug town.
You're the little hippie kid, drug dealer, junkie.
There was always the bong room.
The wacky tobacco.
Full of dope, no shame.
People in Nimbin want to be acknowledged not just for being a place where you can score a joint.
It'd probably take a while to shake that name off, I reckon.
I came to Nimbin in 2012 as an 18-year-old. Back then, you could buy a hash cookie for $10 at a store. Nowadays, I've heard you'd be hard-pressed to score a joint without a fear of being arrested or ripped off. So I'm headed into Nimbin for their biggest annual festival to find out what happened to the undisputed weed capital of the country.
Marty,
How you doing?
you ready for the magic of Mardi Gras? Here is Sativa Stadium, where we do the Hemp Olympics.
What's going on there?
We educate people on how to throw a bong away.
Welcome to government! Holy smokes!
Mardi Gras started after 1 year of really rabid helicopter raids. You know, army uniforms coming down ropes, terrifying hippie communities. But a big part of Mardi Gras, I think, is that uniting of all of us, because we're such outsiders and criminals, and brings us together.
How's the police presence been at the festival this year?
Friday night they were heavy. It's completely different to how it started off. There used to be one cop in Nimbin, you know, and no dramas. So back in those days, it was just cool. It was no big deal. As Nimbin's grown, there's more and more police in it. It's an endless game of cops and robbers.
Many in Nimbin say the culture of the town changed when in 2016, police began targeting this laneway.
That was a huge thing for Nimbin, that was the unofficial marketplace for cannabis for 30 years. Choose your weed, here's a few bags and here's scales, it's a fair deal.
Over 6 months, police secretly recorded the activity of drug dealers. More than 40 people were charged, a group that became known as the Lane Boys.
They don't worry about tobacco, which is addictive. They don't worry about all the chemicals that are killing us.
These boys don't hurt anybody, they're healers.
Sack the cops and free the boys.
It's just like a little gangster type situation, I think. Yeah. The biggest disappointment I see with the Laneway boys is that some people compare them as heroes. Maybe it's just like old Ned Kelly. They're sort of, I think when you look into things, they're not that good. They're just illegal activities.
The community had an affinity with what were known as the Laneway Boys. Local people sort of selling marijuana, and perhaps having local people doing that kept out some other harder drugs or other outside influence.
Most of those charged in the operation were given suspended sentences and banned from hanging out together. It forced some of them out of the town that they grew up in. Until now, none of the Lane Boys have ever spoken publicly.
Well, the first time I heard Lane Boy, I think, was in an article in the paper. And then, yeah, people started to run with it.
This is the lane.
Yeah, this is it. It's definitely a little bit more quiet than it once was, but I spent a lot of time here as a young'un. I only ever dealt marijuana. I mean, it was very extremely normalised. So it's like you grow up out west and your dad's a sheep shearer, you probably end up shearing sheep one day. A large portion get dragged into this sort of scenario. You're more numb to the seriousness of it.
Did you make much money?
I can't answer that one. I don't want, yeah.
They didn't make any attempt to cover it up or whatever, just the real expensive joggers, the designer shorts and shirts and jewellery, blatant.
Oh, I've only ever had cheap shorts. Expensive jeans, maybe. A lot of us grew up with a lot of experiences and a lot of love, but little in the material side of things. So when that becomes a possibility, then of course that's what people kind of do.
Reuben wouldn't have had, a childhood that a lot of other Australian young boys had. Okay, so I'm Paris and I'm Reuben's mother. So Reuben was 2 in the first Mardi Gras, so it's 28 years I've been involved actively in cannabis law reform, and Ruben's been growing up during that time. I did speak to Ruben about it, you know, I was like, well, it can endanger your future. Maybe they weren't paranoid enough because they'd grown up where it had been very open and people didn't get into trouble. And if you've brought up your children to be politically active, I mean, if you don't like a law.
What would happen now if a tourist came to town to score in that lane?
Oh, they'd probably be pretty disappointed. You can feel the energy's going there, and so that's a little bit sad in a way, but I mean, that's just what it is.
Are you ready, police force? Are you ready, polite force? 1, 2, 3.
Each year you have a tug of war between residents and the police. Who do you think's winning the metaphorical tug of war?
We can't lose. We live here, we're not going away, and we're not going to stop smoking pot.
Nimbin's all about change. If we don't have somebody asking hard questions, as a society we don't evolve. You know, we need to have those things that agitate us to become better.
Can Nimbin still truly be considered the weed capital of Australia?
It'd probably take a while to shake that name off, I reckon.
Do you want to shake that name off?
No, I'm totally proud, you know. I couldn't think of anything better to celebrate.